They actually looked me dead in the eye, these two teenagers, my stepchildren, and told me I couldn't ground them because you didn't raise us. Can you believe the audacity? Was I wrong for what I did next? For completely flipping the script on them? Because, honestly, I'm still wondering if I went too far. But at the same time, I wouldn't change a thing. Tell me, would you have done the same? Okay, so let me take you back to the beginning of this whole mess. My name is Sarah, and I married Mark, the love of my life, almost 3 years ago. Mark is a wonderful man, truly kind and supportive, and he came as a package deal with 2 children, 15-year-old Emily and 16-year-old Jacob. When we decided to get married, I knew what I was signing up for. I wasn't naive. I understood that becoming a stepmother wouldn't be a walk in the park, especially with teenagers who had already lost their biological mother to a long illness a few years prior. Their mother, Clara, had been a fantastic woman from what Mark told me, and I respected her memory deeply. I never tried to replace her, only to be a supportive adult figure in their lives, someone who cared for them and helped maintain a stable home. For the first year, things were okay. Not perfect, but okay. Emily was withdrawn. Jacob was rebellious. But I attributed a lot of that to grief and the natural difficulties of adolescence. I tried to be patient, to listen, to offer help with homework, cook their favorite meals, and just generally be present. Mark and I had open discussions about parenting, and we agreed that while I wasn't their biological mother, I was now their parent in this household. We presented a united front, or so I thought. Our dynamic was that Mark handled the heavier, disciplinary actions, but for day-to-day rules, I was fully empowered to enforce them. He made that very clear to the kids. He sat them down several times and explained that my rules were his rules, and disrespecting me was disrespecting him. They nodded, they mumbled acknowledgements, but I could always see that flicker in their eyes, that underlying current of, "You're not our real mom." It was a constant, low-level hum of disrespect that I tried to ignore, hoping it would fade as we built a stronger relationship. I truly poured my heart into trying to connect with them. I took Emily shopping, even though it wasn't my favorite activity, just to spend time with her. I went to Jacob's basketball games, cheering him on even when I barely understood the rules. I made sure their favorite snacks were always in the pantry, helped them with school projects, and tried to create a home where they felt safe and loved. Mark was thrilled. He often told me how much he appreciated my efforts, saying I was making their lives so much better. He'd hug me tight and say he couldn't have asked for a better partner or a better stepmom for his kids. But underneath the surface, there was always that tension, that unspoken boundary they kept erecting. It was subtle at first, a rolled eye when I asked them to do chores, a sigh when I reminded them about homework, ignoring my questions in favor of asking Mark the same thing when he walked into the room 5 minutes later. These small slights, they stung, but I kept telling myself to be the bigger person, to give them time. They were teenagers after all, and they had been through a lot. Their biological mother's family, Clara's parents, and siblings, was still very much in their lives, which was something I encouraged. I thought it was important for them to maintain those connections. However, over time, I started to notice a shift in how Clara's family, particularly her sister, Aunt Carol, interacted with the children, and, by extension, with me. Aunt Carol was lovely to my face, always polite, but I'd overhear snippets of conversations between her and Emily, or Jacob, or see looks exchanged that made me uncomfortable. Nothing overt, just little things. Comments like, "Your mom always did it this way," or, "Remember when your mom used to make that for dinner?" Always delivered with a wistful sigh, especially after I had just cooked a meal. It felt like a constant, gentle undermining of my presence. A subtle reminder that I was the other woman, the replacement, even though I never saw myself that way. I was building a new life with Mark, and that included his children. Mark, bless his heart, was oblivious to these subtleties. He saw his children connecting with their deceased mother's family and thought it was wonderful. And it was in theory. But it also seemed to empower the kids to draw clearer lines between their family and my family, with me firmly on the outside. The situation escalated around Emily's 15th birthday. She wanted a big party, and we agreed to host it. We set some reasonable ground rules. No alcohol, party ends by 11 p.m., and a few friends for a sleepover after that was fine. Emily agreed, or so I thought. On the night of the party, I noticed a lot of whispering and furtive glances. Around 10:30 p.m., I went into the kitchen to grab more snacks and saw Jacob and Emily huddled with a couple of their friends, passing around a small bottle. It was cheap vodka. My heart sank. I immediately went over, calmly confiscated the bottle, and told them the party was over. The friends had to leave, and Emily and Jacob were grounded. They both exploded. Emily started crying, calling me unfair, while Jacob got defensive, saying it was just a little sip. I stood my ground. There are rules in this house, and you broke them. This is unacceptable. That's when Emily looked at me, tears streaming down her face, but with defiance in her eyes, and said, "You can't ground us. You're not our mom. You didn't raise us." Jacob, emboldened by his sister, chimed in, "Yeah, our real mom wouldn't treat us like this." The words hit me like a physical blow. It was one thing to feel the unspoken resentment, but to have it thrown in my face, so explicitly, so cruelly, was devastating. I felt a hot flush of anger, hurt, and pure shock. All those months, all that effort, all the love I had tried to give them, reduced to nothing because I wasn't their biological mother. Mark walked in right then, drawn by the yelling. He saw the empty party, his kids looking distraught, and the empty vodka bottle on the counter. I explained what happened, my voice shaking with emotion. Mark, to his credit, was furious with the kids for the alcohol. He started to lecture them, but they just kept repeating, "She can't ground us. She's not our real mom." Mark tried to pull them aside, tried to reason with them, but they were in full rebellion mode. Their words, "You didn't raise us," kept echoing in my head. And it was true. I hadn't raised them. I hadn't changed their diapers, taught them to ride a bike, or read them bedtime stories. I hadn't been there for their scraped knees or their first day of school. I came into their lives when they were already well on their way to adulthood. And in that moment, something in me snapped. All the patience, all the understanding, all the effort I'd poured into trying to be a good stepmother. It just drained out of me, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. So that's the situation I was in. Standing in my own living room, being told by the children I loved and cared for that I had no right to parent them. And I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let it go? Would you have tried to reason with them again? Or would you have, like me, decided that enough was enough? What would your next move have been? I'm genuinely curious to know what you all think. Okay, so after Emily and Jacob hurled those words at me, that I didn't raise them, something shifted within me. Mark was trying to regain control, but the kids were relentless, using the "not our real mom" line as their ultimate defense. I looked at Mark, and I could see the hurt and frustration in his eyes too, but also a hint of helplessness. He loved his kids, but he also loved me, and he knew how much I'd invested in trying to make our family work. In that instant, an idea, a rather drastic one, began to form in my mind. It wasn't about revenge, not exactly, but it was about establishing boundaries, and in a very clear, undeniable way. I took a deep breath, and the noise level in the room seemed to drop as I spoke. My voice calm but firm, cutting through the chaos. "You're right," I said, looking directly at both Emily and Jacob. my gaze unwavering. You are absolutely right. I didn't raise you. They exchanged smug glances, thinking they had won, but I wasn't finished. And because I didn't raise you, I continued. There are certain things that I am not responsible for, things that, up until now, I have gladly taken responsibility for, simply out of love for your father and for wanting to create a happy home for all of us. Mark looked at me, a worried frown on his face, clearly not knowing where I was going with this. The kids, however, looked confused, their expressions shifting from defiance to slight apprehension. From this moment forward, I stated, making eye contact with each of them in turn, I am no longer going to act as your parent in the areas that you've just rejected my authority in. You don't want me to ground you? Fine, I won't. But I also won't be doing your laundry anymore. I won't be driving you to your friends' houses or to practices. I won't be cooking your favorite meals. I won't be reminding you about your homework or school projects. I won't be buying your clothes, your snacks, or paying for your extracurricular activities. Their eyes widened. Jacob opened his mouth to protest, but I held up a hand. Let me finish. Since I didn't raise you, and therefore have no right to set rules or expect cooperation, I will revert to being your father's wife and your housemate, I suppose. My responsibilities in this house, when it comes to you, will now mirror precisely the level of parental authority you've just assigned me. 0. I paused, letting my words sink in. This means your father will be responsible for all of that. He'll handle your discipline, your transportation, your meals, your laundry, your school needs, your allowance, and anything else a parent does. My focus will be solely on Mark and our shared responsibilities, not yours. The silence that followed was deafening. Mark was gaping at me, his mouth slightly open. Emily looked like she was about to cry again, but this time out of shock, not anger. Jacob's defiant smirk had completely vanished, replaced by a look of dawning horror. I then looked at Mark. Mark, we need to talk. Privately. I walked away, leaving him to deal with his stunned children. We went into our bedroom, and Mark immediately said, Sarah, what was that? Are you serious? I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling a mix of adrenaline and exhaustion. Mark, I am absolutely serious. I have spent 3 years pouring my energy, my time, and my love into trying to build a family with you and your children. I've endured their disrespect, their passive-aggressive comments, and their constant emotional distance, all because I believed in us, and I believed I could make a difference. But tonight, they explicitly told me I have no right to parent them, and if I have no right to parent them, then I have no responsibility to parent them. I could see the wheels turning in Mark's head. He knew I was hurting, and he knew the kids had gone too far. But the logistics, he stammered. I work full-time. How will they get around? Who will cook? Who will do their laundry? That, I said, is now entirely your problem to figure out. You're their parent who raised them. They made it clear that's the only one whose authority they recognize. So, you get all the authority and all the responsibility. Mark was quiet for a long moment, rubbing his temples. He knew I wasn't bluffing. He also knew he couldn't realistically take on all those tasks himself. With his demanding job, he finally looked at me, his expression softening. I understand, Sarah. I really do. This was unfair to you. The next few days were interesting, to say the least. I didn't cook extra meals for Emily and Jacob. I cooked for Mark and myself. If they wanted dinner, they had to ask Mark, who then had to either cook something separate, order takeout for them, or try to convince them to eat whatever I had prepared, which often led to arguments. I stopped doing their laundry. Their hampers overflowed. Their clean clothes, previously folded and put away by me, now sat in piles. When Jacob needed a ride to basketball practice, I politely told him, "You'll have to ask your father. I'm not your chauffeur, remember. I didn't raise you." Mark, stressed and harried, had to leave work early twice that week to pick them up or drop them off. Emily quickly ran out of clean school uniforms. Jacob missed a practice because Mark was stuck in traffic and couldn't get home in time. The house, which I'd always kept neat and organized, started to feel chaotic around their spaces. They were used to me picking up after them, reminding them, doing things for them. Now, it was just undone. The biggest change was with their allowance and privileges. I had always managed their allowance, ensuring they earned it through chores and good behavior. Now that was Mark's domain, and since he was so swamped with the new responsibilities I had shed, he didn't have the time or energy to enforce the chores, leading to them not getting their allowance. And without my active involvement, their access to things like streaming services and Wi-Fi, which I had previously managed and could restrict, was now solely up to Mark. Their world, which I had quietly streamlined and supported for years, began to unravel without my unseen labor. Within a week, the house was a tense, uncomfortable place. Mark was exhausted. The kids were miserable, and I was emotionally drained, but resolute. Emily came to me one evening, her eyes red-rimmed. "My clothes are all dirty," she mumbled, looking down at her worn sweatshirt. "Dad says he doesn't have time to do laundry." I looked at her, my expression neutral. "That's a shame. Perhaps you could learn how to do it yourself." Jacob, surprisingly, was the one who approached me first, looking sheepish. He found me in the living room, reading. "Look, Sarah," he started, his voice uncharacteristically soft. This is really hard. Dad is stressed, and we're always missing stuff. We didn't mean it like that." I put my book down. "You said I didn't raise you, Jacob, and because I didn't, I have no parental authority over you. Therefore, I have no parental responsibility for you. I'm simply following your explicit instructions." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "But you do things for us. You always have. And I did them out of love and a desire to be part of this family," I responded. "But if I'm not considered family enough to have a say in your behavior, then I can't be family enough to carry all the burdens of parenting either. It's a two-way street." Eventually, after almost 2 weeks of this new normal, Mark called a family meeting. He looked utterly worn out. Emily and Jacob looked defeated. "Look," Mark began, looking at his children. "I've tried my best, but I can't do this alone. And more importantly, Sarah has been doing so much for you two, things I never even fully appreciated until now. She stepped up, she tried to be a parent, and you threw it back in her face." He turned to me. "Sarah, I need your help. We need your help. And children, you need to understand that disrespecting Sarah is disrespecting me and disrespecting our family. Your biological mother loved you, and she would have wanted you to be happy and respectful in our home." Emily, surprisingly, was the first to speak. Her voice was small. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I didn't mean it. It just came out. I miss Mom. And sometimes it's hard to have someone else here, even though I know you're not trying to replace her." Jacob nodded. "Yeah, we were jerks. We were just mad about the party, and we said something stupid and mean. We need help with stuff again." I looked at them, and I saw genuine remorse in their eyes. The past 2 weeks had been a harsh lesson for them, and for Mark too, I think. It was a clear demonstration of how much invisible labor I had been contributing. I wasn't just Mark's wife. I was an active, contributing member of their family unit, even if they hadn't acknowledged it. "Apologies are a start," I said softly, "but actions speak louder than words. If I am to resume parental duties, then my authority must be respected. My rules are your father's rules. If you disagree with something, we can discuss it calmly, but there will be no more 'you didn't raise us' as an excuse for insubordination." They both nodded vigorously. Emily even came over and hugged me, something she hadn't done in ages. Jacob, in his own gruff teenage way, said, "We get it. It sucks without you doing stuff." And just like that, the air in the house began to change. Things didn't become perfect overnight, of course. We still had our moments, as any blended family does. But from that day forward, the underlying current of disrespect significantly diminished. They started asking me for help with things again, and they listened when I gave instructions. The chores were done without as much argument, and the subtle undermining from Aunt Carol's side of the family seemed to lose its power. Once the kids themselves started acknowledging my role, it was a tough lesson, one that caused a lot of friction and stress. But it was necessary. Sometimes, people, especially teenagers, don't truly appreciate what someone does for them until that support is completely withdrawn. It showed them that parenting isn't just about biology. It's about presence, effort, love, and responsibility. And it showed them that if they want the benefits of a parent, they have to accept the authority of one too. It redefined my role in the household, not as a replacement, but as an essential and respected figure. I'm still Sarah, their stepmom, but now I'm their stepmom with authority. So, was I wrong? I still grapple with that question sometimes. It was a harsh method, I know, but it was effective. It established boundaries that needed to be established, and it forced everyone to confront the reality of our family dynamic. It wasn't about being mean or spiteful, but about reclaiming my position and ensuring that my contributions to our family were seen, valued, and respected. I believe that sometimes you have to be firm to teach crucial lessons, and this was certainly one of them. What do you think? Like this video if you were on my side and think I did what needed to be done. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I want to hear if you agree, or if you would have handled it differently. I'll see you all in the next story.